Good evening, I hope everyone's well today, thank you for watching. If you don't hate the BBC enough, then we're gonna deconstruct the BBC a little bit here. Obviously they're meant to be independent, they're meant to be impartial. We know this isn't true. What they are is actually a mouthpiece for the establishment, and I think that's why many people are cancelling their TV licences. And they're putting their faith in independent media and independent journalists, and I'd like to thank you. And we'll get into it. So the first thing I want to do is bring up three high-profile cases that have happened this week. Manhunt for Epping Migrants Hotel asylum seeker jailed for an SA on a girl after accidental release. That's happened this evening. Alright? We've got the prison service actually accidentally releasing high profile offenders. He only got 12 months anyway, probably out before Christmas. Allegedly he was going to be deported. Now I don't actually buy that. I think there's something other going on here that we're not being told. But that's the first point. And it's all about the incompetence of the bureaucracy. It's the same thing that happens in the NHS. Like I mentioned recently with this guy, essentially was starved and eventually passed away due to negligence in the NHS. Nobody checked to see if he was nil by mouth or he could be given food or not. Alright, it's that level of incompetence. So that's the first issue, that's the first case. The second case is one of the people that we sent back over to France since Keir Starmer's one-in, one-out deal is already back in the country. So much for deterrence. And the third, the most egregious one in my view, is the migrant hotel worker. Alright? Their person, the criminal, the illegal, who followed her to a train station and unalived her by viciously attacking her and stabbing her with a screwdriver 23 times. Well, he was found guilty today by a jury of his peers. Well, not actually his peers, because we're not foreigners like him. Let's have a look now. Deng Chow Magic was found guilty of the murder of a hotel worker, Rhiannon Skywhite, who was stabbed 23 times with a screwdriver in October last year. Majak was an asylum seeker from Sudan, arrived in the UK last July. He denied being responsible for the fatal assault through the interpreter. Rhiannon had such a quirky personality, according to the sister, Alex White. You would hear her before you see her, and no matter what her days being, she always wanted to make sure everyone around her was happy. She prioritised her family, and the most important things to Rhiannon, obviously, she has her brother and three sisters, and my mum, who were her best friend, and obviously she had a child as well. They've actually put out a statement saying that Keir Starmer is at least partially responsible for her passing, and he has blood on her hands. I don't think anybody could argue with that point. The point is that these three people shouldn't be in the country. If we had an actual border force, who are going on strike, by the way, and when I read that, I was incredulous. I was like, do we actually have a border force? No, we don't. We have a border force. Let's get it right. The BBC have their talking heads on, and I'm going to get to these clips in a moment also. This is where the Reform councillor Laila Cunningham actually dismantles the guy expertly. But before we get to that, I want to look at the backhand. The two clips, one's on Question Time and one's on Newsnight. You'll get the media talking heads on the left trying to sell you the policy on the front end, trying to appeal to your better nature, saying we need to be decent people, we need to be nice people. Only us on the left with this particular worldview are nice. If you're not like us, what's wrong with you? Alright? Then you've got the people on the back end, and this first clip is from up in Falkirk. Alright? This is a BBC reporter. Now, me personally, in my area in Cheshire, we've had issues with dinghy divers, refugees hanging around schools and play parks where young children, especially little girls, play. We've had this issue and we have it on a regular basis. This footage from Falkirk is shocking.
Just asking why you are encouraging these young men to sit in this park that they've been following children and that have been in previously. Yeah, cut the camera. Well, you can put the camera on if you want. But we've been trying really hard to keep this park safe, and you, as a BBC reporter, have now just encouraged them to come back into this park. They are, of course they are. Take it out of kids' play. play park. Take it to a park that women and children come here on their own to walk their dogs. This Falkirk is a big place, but you're encouraging them to come into a park. A park. You could do your job anywhere.
Their job is to put out a puff piece for the migrants, try to sell it to you on the back end on the TV. They put out these documentaries at taxpayers' expense saying, look at the big victims, look at these migrants, look at these people. Don't you feel sorry for them? Not at all. I really don't. Couldn't care less. Crimey River, not my problem. My problem is the £3 trillion debt that we've got in the country. My problem is our homeless people on the street. My problem is not enough money in the NHS for people actually that are paid into the system. People not getting the pensions. These are problems that I have, not being a sanctuary for the rest of the universe. Not until we can afford it.
You could do the job anywhere. We said that before.
And it's also normalising the behaviour. Alright, if you get the mouthpieces and the useful idiots like this snob jockey from the BBC telling these migrants, go in these public spaces where these vulnerable people are going to be, it gives the message and it gives the signal that this is acceptable behaviour. Bringing fighting age undocumented men into safe spaces for women and children and saying, have at it, do your worst. That's extension. It's like ringing the dinner bell, for Christ's sake.
Are at risk. There's nobody at risk here. Say who? In your opinion, there's nobody at risk here? In your opinion, can you guarantee that?
Yes, for the time being. In this situation, yes, it's right.
Yeah, I'd really appreciate it if you've done your interview somewhere else.
Okay, understood.
It is a public park. It is a public park where umpteen, go take that camera off me, for umpteen kids have been followed, they've been videoed. It doesn't matter what my name is. It really doesn't matter. I'm here as a woman on her own, and again, it's been a long, long time. Right now there isn't, but you've encouraged us to come back over this park. You personally have encouraged young men to be hanging about this park again.
I don't really understand what your concern is, because there's no threat.
Right at this moment in time there's not? Is that what you're telling me?
Exactly.
Which is absolutely fine, so it's okay right in this moment in time, but it's still okay for you to encourage them to come back over a park. When there is loads of other people, why not do it in a hotel? Why did you not do it in a hotel?
Okay, if you want to make a complaint, you can complain to the BBC.
I will be complaining to the BBC.
That's fine.
But yous are all liars anyway, so it'll probably not get very far.
Well, you can complain to our editor if you like. Her name's Shelley Joffrey. She works at the BBC.
Because she's going to be much better than yours, is she?
Well,
so we'll leave that one there, but you get the points. There's legitimate safeguarding concerns because we don't know who these people are. Anyway, we'll go to the two clips. The first one's from Question Time and the second one's from Newsnight. But this is why they'll try and sell it to you, and this is how they'll try and package it to you. No concern for the regular people. They're all middle class to upper middle class socialists. You'll always get these types of people doing this, and you need to wise up to it. Anyway, we'll get to the clips now.
I don't know when we started dehumanising people to the extent
You'll notice with the clapping seals, right on cue, that the demographic of the audience is very biased towards a certain angle of the arguments. This is because it's based on parliamentary arithmetic of seats for all political parties. It doesn't factor in people that don't vote, and it doesn't factor in absolute numbers of voters. So you won't get a third of the audience being Reform voters, even though more than 4 million people voted Reform at the last general election. You will get more Lib Dem supporters in the audience. They got, I think, 71 or 72 seats, and they got about half the amount of votes that Reform UK got. So you'll always find this in the curated environment of the mainstream media in their audiences. That's their built-in bias. The woman speaking now, just for full disclosure, her name is Mariella Frostup, and she's married to a highly paid human rights lawyer. Of course, they all are. They live in a 7-bedroom house in an ultra-white Somerset, alongside Jacob Rees-Mogg, and they have 0 migrants housed within 10 miles. This is the epitome of liberal elitism, and they impose their worldview on the rest of the population and scream racist if we don't share their moral compass and morality. So we'll continue with the clip now.
interrupting, I actually have to admire the chutzpah of the man who's tried twice to get to the UK. And I'm not saying that he should necessarily be allowed in and that he necessarily has the right, qualifications for acceptance. But the fact that he wants to come here that badly, I mean, imagine if nobody wanted to come here, then we'd really be depressed about Britain as a nation.
You know what? I think I'd live with it. I'd rather we keep our indigenous people, our women, children safe. I'd rather that, to be honest, than be thought of as nice on the world stage. That's my opinion. That's what other countries do, like the UAE and Qatar. Other countries do it. America's doing it now. Why can't we do it? We can. It's about political will.
So I'm saying that in a light-hearted way, but I think that, of course it's an issue. It was an issue before the boats, it was an issue with lorries, and it was an issue. But in that time, we've also decreased our budget for international development. It's gone down to 0.3%. We have
That's because it's not our problem to fix the world. That's not really our issue. We've got a deficit of over £3 trillion. We're always told that we're one of the richest countries in the world with a £3 trillion debt. Are you trying to kid? And when we say that we can't dehumanise people, well, we can. We can do it all the time. Of course we can do it. Of course. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Completely shambolic asylum system. You talk about people coming here illegally, but what are the legal routes? We still don't have proper legal routes. We've got conflicts all over.
We do have legal routes to countries that we deem acceptable and worthy, such as Ukraine and the British Hong Kongers that were portrayed by the British government with their, one country, two rules. I think it was when we handed over Hong Kong to the Chinese. They threw up that agreement and decided, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. So we do have safe and legal routes, all right? When we deem it appropriate. Ukraine is an actual war zone. That's the difference.
The world.
Okay,
so I'm a woman in the Congo, and I'm one.
She'll bring up an abstract case now of a woman in the Congo.
80,000 women who's been raped as a result of the conflict that's going on there, completely unbridled, which is all to do with elements for our mobile phones.
I'm going to be a bit cold-hearted here. There are safe countries near the Congo that could deal with it. It's not Britain's problem. And she'll go on to mention in a minute, well, what if her sister's in the UK? Well, she can leave the UK and she can go where her sister is. There's no problem with that at all.
And I desperately need to escape. My family's been wiped out. What's my legal way of applying to come and join my sister who's here in the UK? It is impossible, and our system is completely broken, and I don't disagree with that. But I think the way in which we talk about people trying to come here and the way we completely ignore the dilemmas that they face and the fact that we have been instrumental as a nation in a lot of those conflicts and as a result, what happened to Afghanistan when we were all absolutely determined that people from Afghanistan should be able to come here because of the way they supported us during.
Who was determined that would be allowed? I never consented to that. I was against the invasion when it happened. I'm against people that helped us in Afghan coming here now. I'm consistent on that. Afghanistan is not our problem. Now we'll leave that clip there. That's the first clip I wanted to bring you. The second one is even more comical. These are the establishment organ heads, by the way. These are the people that rule over us. Always bear that in mind.
Generally speaking, we know that Reform is operating with a populist strategy, which essentially to me translates as say the most popular thing, which is often the simplest thing to very nuanced debates, get people on side, and then iron through the creases once it's already too late. Now, I would love to ask both of you about, especially you, Laila. So, whenever I see you on screen, it's a very weaponised politics. It's about identifying an enemy. If we get X group out, then we will no longer have problems.
I'm going to stop on this point first of all. You see the leftists doing it all the time. Target the wealth, target the rich people. That's exactly what he's doing here, what he's saying Reform's doing regarding illegal migrants, for example, or legal migrants. Be clear, illegal migration is about 3 to 4% of total all migration into the UK. Legal migration is the bigger issue, of course. However, when you get people on the left and say, let's go after the millionaires, let's get their wealth, and it's just It's one big blob of people. They never differentiate between anything, and they say, right, the rich people are the enemy. They're the problem. They're the reason why your NHS is collapsing. They're the reason why we've got all this death. Is it alright when they do it? Is that what it is? Or is it one rule for them and one for us? Or when Keir can demonise everybody on the Unite the Kingdom rallies down in London and say that and tar them all with the same brush. They're alright to do that.
Okay, so talk to me about immigration. So when I've seen you talking about clips where we're hearing the word Ethiopians and racist, and we're tarring
you heard me say the word Ethiopian and racist?
Yes.
When did you hear me say that?
Rapists.
Rapists, yes, because there have been illegal migrants have been allowed into this country that have gone on to sexually assault girls.
Correct.
Do you condone that?
Why are we tarring the entire Ethiopians? We've just spent the top half of this...
Because it was... Hang on. I'm sorry. But when you allow people, unvetted men, into our country who you have no idea who their history is, and you put them in a town and village, and you subject them to young girls who are walking in the streets, and they end up raping a girl, or sexually assaulting a girl, of course I'm going to call it out.
Listen, why is it not enough?
Would you not think it's right to call it out?
Why is it not enough to say, let's take measures on immigration? The minute you start
We are taking measures on immigration.
The minute you start referencing specific groups, the association in people's minds is, if I encounter an Ethiopian, this is now the person we're talking about. We just spent the whole top of the show talking about Prince Andrew, and yet I've never heard you say abolish the royals. You can treat it as a case study. So what I'm saying...
Right, the accusations against Prince Andrew. Let's just be clear about this. This isn't me defending Prince Andrew, by the way. He's not actually been in court regarding a crime. And the more important thing is, he's British. If you've got a particular problem with a particular type of crime, such as assaults against women and children, why would you import more of the demographic that's more predisposed to commit that act? Why would you do that? It's puzzling to me. Now, Laila will go on to say this in a moment. If one of these people commits an atrocious crime like that, surely that's enough for the entire system to be overhauled. I think that's enough on the face of it. Entering this country is illegal under an Act of Parliament in the 1970s. I think it was 1971 or 1972. So if you enter the country without proper documents via a actual port of entry, you are breaking the law. That's the matter of the fact. You've heard the phrase, I don't know, I think, what is it? The one bad apple spoils the bunch, alright? It's exactly the same thing here, alright? Or when you was in primary school, when there was one or two kids playing up in the classroom and the entire classroom was punished because of it. This is exactly the same. This is really basic stuff, and Laila's completely on point with this. Anyway, we'll continue.
Wales are part of Britain. We are importing rapists and terrorists into this country through our open borders. You cannot deny that. How many rapes is too much for you to say it's not okay? How many rapes would you accept?
This is my question to you, right? We are talking about instances. We know that there are rapists in Britain, right? Already here. You've described them as homegrown rapists before. That is very different. The homegrown rapist, that's almost a juxtaposition.
Not really. Now, the issue is, we know precisely who these monsters are in the UK, the homegrown people that do this sort of crime. However, the data bears this out. If you look at the demographics comparative to other populations from other countries, especially in African countries, it's night and day. These people are not the same as people in Britain. They are not. And when you get the leftist, globalist media, journalists and commentators trying to conflate that and actually say, well, yeah, I mean, what's the issue? Why are you zeroing in on illegals or migrants in general when they commit crimes? Because it's an imported problem, you're making matters worse.
It doesn't make any sense as a term of condemnation, right?
Yes, of course it does. Any rapist is condemned by me.
Agreed.
I was a criminal prosecutor and I'm a mother of daughters and I'm a woman myself. Of course they are. Don't put words into my mouth. But we have homegrown rapists. That does not excuse us importing more and putting them in towns and villages. I'm sorry, I'm not going to back down from that position, and I think you'll find most of the British public completely disagree with you. And if that certain rapist that I mentioned happened to be Ethiopian, then yes, I'm not going to shy away from saying that he was Ethiopian, because that's what happened with the Pakistani rape gangs. People didn't want to say where they were from, and it was happy they were proliferated.
Yes, but you're you're applying it to a wide group. When
No,
actually
I'm
what
applying
we
it
know
to
is,
illegal migrants who are allowed into this country. That is not a wide group, that is a
but
specific
it's not
group.
all illegal migrants.
How do you know? Are they vetted? How do you know?
Because
Completely agreed. How do you know? And the answer is you don't know. If one of them is a bad apple, if one of them is a bad seed, then you have to take it as an absolute certainty, in my view, that they're all just as bad. They deserve no benefit of any doubt.
we know that we're talking about instances.
How do you know
We
that
know that-
every man crossing that on that boat is not a rapist or a terrorist? We know that one was a convicted terrorist.
But how, just to be clear, you don't know
that.
No, I don't know, but I'm not going to give them the benefit of the doubt because they have thrown their passports, they've entered this country illegally, so I will treat them as criminals, yes.
Let me
So we'll leave that one there. So there you have it. I think you'll agree that Laila Cunningham was on fine form in that second clip. But this is what we're up against, and this is the fight that we're fighting. Now if you like this video, and you think I'm onto something with this, we need to take it as an absolute certainty that all of the illegals that are coming in mean us harm. And the reason why they dump their documents into the ocean is because they can't be identified. Nobody with pure intentions, nobody with honest intentions would need to do that. Now if you like this video, let me know, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. You have a good afternoon.